I play your indie games on itch. Coming up.
I play rock, paper, scissors. I score a touchdown. I stoke a fire with a banana. And I punch a robot in the face.
I'm Xanderwood. I make indie games and tutorials on game development. I also play your indie games every week on my channel. Make sure you subscribe and click that bell icon so you never miss a video.
As always, a massive thank you and a shout out to my wonderful Patreons and channel members Foozle CC, Jan, Jet Simon, Amari Lewis, Lightning Cat, Olivia Bernier, Retro Galaxy, Fan Van, Seb Copel, M. Mark Ames, Rob, Troy Anderson, Jaron Dumont and Matt. If you'd like to know more about the benefits of becoming a Patreon, there is a link in the description. ROPAS by SAIFICTION is a puzzle game designed around rock, paper, scissors. The goal of the game is to be left with the symbol shown to you at the start of the round. The graphics are clean. There is a simple colour palette which complements the game well. I especially like the juicy animations when moving and controlling the on-screen icon. The UI is also very nicely done and does a great job at presenting the information. The music is calming and enjoyable to listen to while playing, but it seemed like just the one track was looping as you played. Perhaps this changes as you progress through the levels, or at least it should do. I would also like the ability to pick the soundtrack for the game. The sound effects are minimal, but they work. The game doesn't need a lot of them. Perhaps a nice little sliding sound effect for when the icons are moving around would be nice, but that's not at all a complaint. You have to move the symbols around a square grid to beat opposite symbols. For example, rock beats scissors, and paper beats rock. Each symbol can only move a certain number of times, so you have to figure out where to move them, so that you only end up with the correct symbol when all turns have been played. It's a fun, well-polished puzzle game that, considering its simplicity, does a great job at keeping you engaged. The puzzles start out simple, and the learning curve is great. I was able to immediately figure out what to do and play without any difficulty. Definitely worth a go if you're into your puzzle games. Little AJ's Big Football by SATX is a football game. At the start of the game, you can pick a player to pass to, and then simply run like your life depends on it, to the end zone. This is repeated over and over until the timer runs out, and your goal is to rack up the highest possible score. It's a cute little pixel art game, but there are some pixel ratio issues, specifically with the large heads of the players versus the small pixel characters, and the title screen doesn't mesh well in terms of consistency. However, with that said, it's a cute looking game with fun little sprites and a simple objective. The music is upbeat and fits the game very well. There is a nice transition between title screen music and game music too, which works well. The game has most of the sound effects there, like the throwing of the ball and tackling sounds, but it feels like it's missing a running sound effect. It's fun the first few times, but it does get old pretty quickly. I think it needs to have more to do to keep people coming back to try again. A high score game is only as good as the game's ability and fun factor to entice players back again and again. You could add in some items that you can collect on the field that would upgrade your kit and ball control. Perhaps give the player the ability to pick their 3 characters from a roster, with the game allowing you to spend points on upgrading your player's stats or using those points to buy new characters. It's a cute little game with promise, but needs more substance to keep people coming back to it. You'll enjoy it for a couple of rounds, but soon you'll be moving on to another game. Banana Ben Goes Camping by QUINTON is a fun little survival game where you, Ben, a banana, yes, a banana, need to keep a fire going. A simple enough task, but the problem is, while you're proactively running back and forth from your tent, stoking it up, there are a swarm of little brown things rushing to extinguish your hard work. You can stop them by sticking your tongue out and eating them, and your goal is to simply survive as long as you can to gain a high score. The art is really good. I love the little animations on the banana character, and the campfire is well animated. The UI art is also done well, but you need to replace the text with a pixel font to keep in tune with the game style. There is ambient sound and sound effects for the fire, but that's about it. You definitely need a nice chiptune soundtrack and some more sound effects when eating. You can also use sound to give player an indication of how well they're doing. Add in some negative sound effects when the player loses time, for example. The game stumbles at the same hurdles as the previous game. It's just not that enjoyable, running back and forth from a tent to keep a fire going for the longest time possible. You need to think of a way to give the player more to do that will impact the playtime, and keep the player engaged. Something like a power-up you can collect, that will give you a better way to defend the fire. The tongue attack is a little weak, and can sometimes be hard to land. Perhaps give the player the option to build more than one fire. What if you could collect sticks, and when you have a certain number, the game lets you build another campfire for a score multiplier? It does a great job at doing what it sets out to, but now is the time to take things to the next level. On its own, right now, it's fine, but the potential is there for it to be much, much more. PUNCHBOTS, an unusual fighting game by Ghost Creative Studio, is an unusual fighting game with robots. It's a round-based fight to robot death, where you can battle up to 3 other characters in a selection of wonderfully well-drawn levels. The goal is to be the last robot standing, a task that I must say was seemingly all too simple. The graphics were amazing. Everything was well thought out in terms of consistency and style. The character animations were perfectly created and the game felt very complete. I really liked the bright and vibrant colour palette. Likewise with the sound, the game was perfectly complete, with a myriad of music and sound effects, all in the places you'd expect. Nothing felt like it was missing. This is where the game starts to let itself down. I can imagine as a multiplayer experience, the game will please a lot of people, but playing solo against the AI was not that fun. The game felt too easy, and I was able to win every round I played, no matter what my strategy was. I even just stood still for one entire round, firing just one shot at the very end, and I still managed to win without taking any damage. The control of the characters were fine, but I feel like the game could really benefit from a much wider range of attacks. The fun in this type of game comes from the ability to send your opponent to meet their maker, in as many crazy and obtusely offensive ways as possible. It's a very well made game, and if you have a couple of friends who like to battle it out over bragging rights, I'd definitely say give it a try. The challenge you'll face, however, is convincing yourself to play again and again, with the limited firepower and weapon upgrades. If you'd like to submit your game for a review on the channel, there is a link in the description. Due to the popularity of the series, there may be a wait for your game to feature, so thank you for your patience.